The second math strand covers operations and algebraic thinking. And I am sure, like me, you hear operations and algebraic thinking, and it seems like, yikes. I mean, my kid's only two. This is too early for them. But it's really not as complicated as it sounds. As you can see, there's two different concepts under this strand. The first is exploring addition and subtraction, and just this idea of addition and subtraction. And then the second portion covers patterning. So I left in the actual portion of the document that you would see, and I kind of reorganized it to make it easier to understand. But basically, they recognize that adding increases the number of objects in a group. And then that kind of goes along with this one when they can describe changes when two or more sets of objects are combined. So basically, the concept that adding more cars to your pile gives you more cars in total. And then subtraction is basically the exact same idea, but opposite. So all those times when we, make our kids share one of their cars with the other children, that's this concept of subtraction. So they understand when they have to take one of their items and give it away that they now have less. And, that's one of the reasons they get upset. And then I put some stars down here around this, the counting on from the larger number for addition. So basically looking at a set of objects and knowing that there's three of them there and being able to continue counting on, saying 4, 5, 6. So that's actually a pretty high level skill, believe it or not. So addition and subtraction, the concept of exploring them literally looks like this. You give them a bunch of things to experiment and play with, and they're realizing as they're adding more elephants to their pile, they're exploring that concept of addition. And then if you look at the pictures in the opposite order, and you start with this big jumbo pile of elephants, and you start taking them away and putting them back in the bucket, that's basically subtraction. So simple comparing happens all the time. Like I know for my kids, especially when you go to give them a snack, and they both are eyeballing the plates, trying to see who's getting the bigger one. Um, that's actually an algebraic thinking that is happening right there. They're understanding the concept of more and less, whether or not it's equal. And that can look like a lot of different things. Simply comparing the heights of the kids, or comparing when I add a block onto my pile, they get taller and now I have more blocks. It's all happening during play. More and less, they're understanding that as they make more of these cookies, they're going to end up with more. They're literally in the process of adding a new one, over and over and over again. When you have kids playing in different like sensory tubs and stuff, a lot of times I know what I see is they start gathering up all the fun little hidden materials, and then you get one kid that's upset because they don't have any and they have all of them, blah blah blah. Well, they're exploring concepts of addition and subtraction. So again, this is them exploring addition and subtraction. This is my own girls, and these are string slime that they're making. You can see one of them is very carefully measuring it out, while the other one is just squeezing and going bananas, just pretty much emptying an entire tray. I told them to go ahead and make some more, and this is what it looked like to them. So I had mentioned that idea of counting on, and if you guys ever saw Rain Man, like way back in the day, Dustin Hoffman, he had basically like a very advanced form of autism where he was able to look at a group of objects and he could instantly tell how many were in that group. So that's actually an example of something called subitizing. It basically is just fancy talk for like looking at a group of items and understanding how many are in that group. So he was able to see the toothpicks spilled out on the floor and knew that there were 246. Obviously, that is not a skill that most people can replicate. But our preschoolers, meaning the kids we're working with, can look at a pile of about 1 to 3 items and they can understand that there's 1 or 2 or 3. By age 7, they're able to look at a pile of 4 to 7 items. So again, way, way, way less than I would imagine many of us would think. But that helps to prepare them when it comes to counting on, because if they look at the pile and they know there's three, then they can say three and begin counting on four, five, six as they add new items. So my little one here is playing with some Play-Doh. We were doing some different activities, and I'm sure this video is not going to work, but I had added a little bit of water to her Play-Doh, and I was talking to her about whether or not she liked it. And she was telling me that she liked it because it made it more squishier. And I thought that was pretty interesting because she actually was understanding this concept of it changing the quality. It changed the consistency of the Play-Doh. It made it more squishier for her. And so, of course, she liked it more because that's my little sensory kiddo. So I had mentioned keeping your eye out for different kinds of vocab and things like that in these trainings. Definitely concepts, number concepts like more and less, none or all gone, fewer and more, plenty and many, a lot, a little, not as many. So using phrases like that helps to draw their attention to the quantities that are happening. And then, of course, you have calculations when we mention things like you can add one more cookie, or you're going to take less peanuts than that, or whatever it is. Let's take one and put one back. Those are simple phrases that, just by realizing their value, if we can start using them more intentionally, then we kind of take our teaching to the next level, so to speak. It's going to be happening all throughout the day in everything that you guys encounter. So then we start talking about patterns. And one thing that I think is interesting is that there's a lot of different kinds of patterns that we might encounter. Um, just the concept of things starting out small and growing bigger and bigger, that's a pattern. Now, as kids begin to understand patterns, it actually helps them realize that there's a sequence, like a plan to the day's routines. So a lot of times I ask people if they follow a schedule, and they're like, no, I just let the kids do whatever. But you actually are following schedules pretty much throughout the day, because you know when they wake up, you are going to be making breakfast soon. And so the kiddos know that breakfast comes first. And then maybe you guys always go outside after breakfast. And then after that, we come in and we clean up and we wash our hands for lunch, and then we take a nap. That's a pattern, a typical pattern to the day. So helping them recognize those is going to help them like make predictions and understand what's coming next, and they start making connections and using their reasoning skills. So again, I wanted to share the entire document. So when we look at the standards, this is what we see. And this is like one of 5 different ways that they tell us the standards. But basically, when we talk about patterns, it's they recognize them, they can fix them, they can duplicate them, they can extend them and continue them, they can create them, and they can see when things are similar and different. So just simply by pointing out the stripes on their shirt, red, blue, that's drawing their attention to the patterns that are happening around them. And so many children's toys are naturally like designed with patterning in mind. And it's one of those things that we probably, if we just start noticing it and seeing all the patterns in the world around us, it would probably be rather surprising. So, if you look at my little one here with the Mancala game, she, I didn't even do anything. I literally just like set them on the ground and was sorting through some stuff. And she started naturally making that pattern on each side. She said teal and blue and white, and then teal and white. And so then she wanted to do the same pattern on the next side. And again, that's not something I told her to do. That was just naturally what was happening. And then again, over here, they've got some different colored popsicle sticks and little like juice pouches and little cars. And they created this design here. But as you can see, there's actually a pattern happening here too. So they made like the star shape and then 2 sticks, and the star shape and 2 sticks, and the star shape and 2 sticks. And again, no one showed them this pattern. They were just actively creating, and patterns naturally occur. So there's patterns definitely in things like pattern blocks, but tiles and things like that around you. Even in the food that we eat, we can make these fruit kebabs, right? And we make each one the same. And I used to do this with things that my kids didn't want to eat. So I'd do like blueberry grape, blueberry grape, blueberry grape, and they would be more likely to eat things that were stuck on a stick. I don't know why. Duplos, I mean, I had created basically just simple color patterns, and then they would create them and match them up. As the kids get older, they can make their own color patterns. But again, this is not something you should have to go out and pay for. Here we are during one of our play and learns, and you can see I had given the different floor tile mats to pass out, and I had the kids set them up. They naturally started making circles, circle, step, circle, step, circle, step. And then when they ran out, they changed the pattern. What is that? A star, not a triangle. Star, square. And this is what kids are naturally drawn to do. They like doing this kind of stuff. I used to make these all the time with my kids. We called them porcupines, but you can do them with any kind of stuff. You can even do beads instead of Fruit Loops. But I needed to buy myself a little extra time during lunch prep or dinner, and I just grabbed a blob of Play-Doh and gave them a bunch of dry spaghetti and some Fruit Loops, and they started naturally making their own patterns. And they must have played with these porcupines for an hour. And again, there's tons of variations of ways you can do that, but this is what worked for us. My daughter the other day was actually doing using these little number calendar cards, and she had made the top line 1, 2, 3, right, all the way to 10. And then she had actually started trying to put the next line in, and I pointed out to her the pattern, the 2, and then there's a 12, so it ends in a 2, the 3, and then a 13, it ends in a 3, 4, and 14. And so she knew some of the lower numbers, but didn't know some of the higher numbers. So I said, okay, well, let's look at the pattern. Here's a 9. Do we have one that ends in a 9? And one of the things that, of course, would happen is that she would pick up things like 29, and then, oh great, you found one that ends in a 9, let's see. So we've got 1 2, 1 3, 1 4, 1 7, 1 8, and then 2 9. Wait a minute, do we have something with a 1 9? And so she was exploring the idea of counting into the higher numbers and realizing that there was a pattern there, and that pattern helped her to create what you're seeing above you. All right, so let's share a few things, your thoughts, comment on the video, or comment when you get back to Facebook on the post. But make sure that you share your thoughts, any ideas you might have for patterning, for exploring addition and subtraction. But just make sure you share, and we will get our next video posted up soon.